Good evening, it's Saturday the 2nd of May. You're tuned in to our 6 p.m. newscast coming to you from Arirang's news centre in Seoul. It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this evening. 8 months after starting talks on the sensitive issue of reforming the pension system for civil servants, a deal has been struck. With Korea's rapidly ageing population, the parliament was left with no choice but to make public sector workers pay more but receive less after they retire. Song Ji-son starts us off.
It has been in the works for a while, but on Saturday, the National Assembly finally agreed on a plan to reform the pension plan for public sector workers. Public workers will see their monthly insurance premiums rise by an average of 30%, but the pension payouts will be cut by an average of 10% over the next 20 years. That means a public worker who served 30 years and received a monthly salary of $3,000 will now pay $250 a month in pension contributions instead of the current $200. Once they retire, they will get $150 less than now at around $1,500 a month. Under the revised plan, more than $300 billion will be saved over the next 70 years. The main opposition party has also agreed to allocate 20% of the saved amount to the National Pension Service to supplement a pension plan for the general public and the less privileged. With Korea's society aging fast, the public workers' pension would have been on track to hit an annual deficit of $10 billion by 2025, and over $3 billion of taxpayers' money was to be poured in to foot that bill if this reform had not been agreed. The leaders of the ruling and opposition parties will fine-tune the details over the next few days to have the bill approved at a parliamentary session on Wednesday. Song Ji-son, Arirang News.
Taking their case to the United Nations for the first time, Korean activists and survivors are saying it's high time Japan apologize to and compensate Koreans who were taken to Japan as forced laborers and fell victim to the nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. The demand was made at the review conference of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty taking place on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. 72-year-old Shim Jin-tae, who was a toddler living with his father at the time of the bombings, said most Koreans who were in Japan at that time were taken there to work against their will. He said the Japanese government must apologize and compensate the victims, and the United States should also take responsibility for dropping the atomic bombs. 100,000 Koreans were affected by the bombings, with half, roughly 50,000, dying the instant the bombs exploded. More than 500 protesters held a rally in Los Angeles on Friday local time to demand an apology for Japan's wartime atrocities from visiting Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Gathered outside a hotel in LA, the demonstrators sounded off against Abe's lack of atonement for the Japanese Imperial Army's sexual enslavement of hundreds of thousands of women from Korea, China and other nations in the 1930s and during World War II. The protesters demanded Abe use his high-profile trip to the US to issue a sincere apology for the horror those women and young girls endured decades ago. Abe, who gave a speech to the US Congress early this week, has sidestepped calls for him to say sorry throughout his week-long trip. The Korean government says Abe has missed an opportunity for reconciliation by glossing over the darkest parts of Japan's history. Korea's Hyundai Motor Group saw its sales in the United States jump in April as Hyundai and Kia boosted incentives for their American customers. Hyundai Motor America says its sales rose 3% to just over 68,000 units last month. That actually sets a new April record. The results also show Hyundai has been gaining ground in the premium end of the market, with sales of its Genesis luxury sedan spiking by more than 140%. 20% in April to well over 3,000 units. Now, Kia had a rather mixed month. Its redesigned Sorento crossover and Sedona minivan posted strong increases, but sales of its Seoul subcompact tumbled more than 20%. Korea is taking its push to promote the health benefits and general deliciousness of Korean food to the next level. A special pavilion themed solely on Korean food, or hanshik as it's known here, has opened at the Milan Expo 2015, and Korea's signature dishes are winning rave reviews. Kim Jeon reports.
Hundreds of pots dotted around this special pavilion give visitors from around the world a first-hand view of the fermentation process involved in the preparation of some of Korea's traditional dishes. Under this year's theme of Feeding the Planet, Energy for Life, Korean cuisine is on display at the Milan Expo. Some of Korea's signature dishes, including bibimbap, a spicy mix of rice, meat, and vegetables, and japchae, sweet potato noodles, are offered to global participants.
A lot of fusion ingredients, like meat with some fruits.
With its mission to find healthy food for the future, the Milan Expo, which opened on Friday, will run for the next 6 months. Also taking part in the event is Korea's Culture Minister Kim Jong-duk, who hopes the expo will help promote hanshik, or Korean traditional food, to the world.
We need to change the way we promote hanshik. It's important to consider Korean food as a cultural content rather than merely a way to make bigger profits.
The ministry says it will designate June 23rd as Korean Day, a holiday for the promotion of hanshik. North Korea is also expected to take part in the expo, highlighting the benefits of insam, slow-growing perennial plants that are known for enhancing one's energy and overall well-being. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
The authorities in Nepal have ruled out the possibility of finding any more survivors buried in the rubble from last Saturday's devastating earthquake. This comes as the death toll surpassed 6,600 people on Saturday. Officials say the main focus has shifted to reaching survivors in remote areas who have yet to receive relief supplies a full week after the earthquake. UNICEF says there is only a small window of time for relief workers to put in place measures to protect people from deadly disease outbreaks, as the monsoon season will start soon. An official from UNICEF says overflowing hospitals, a lack of water, exposed bodies and people sleeping in the open make it a perfect breeding ground for diseases. The earthquake has left 3 million people needing food and flattened more than 130,000 homes. 6 police officers in the U.S. city of Baltimore have been charged in the death of Freddie Gray, an African-American man who died in police custody. The city's top prosecutor, Marilyn Mosby, said Gray's arrest was illegal and unjustified. She added that the officers ignored Gray's pleas for medical attention during a ride between the site of his arrest and a police booking center. The officers, 3 black and 3 white, 5 men and 1 woman, are charged with crimes ranging from second-degree murder, manslaughter and assault. They have since been released from detention on bail. The city's police union slammed the decision to charge the officers, saying there had been a rush to judgment given that the probe has not yet been concluded. The 25-year-old's death sparked violent protests in Baltimore this week. Now, exercise is supposed to be good for us, but there's a new study out showing how it can be harmful to people who have cancer. Korean researchers have discovered a chemical compound that's created during exercise that could potentially speed up the growth of cancer cells. Our Park Se-young reports.
The body uses a lot of oxygen when you exercise, which is why you end up breathing heavily afterwards. This action isn't always enough to supply the body with the oxygen it needs, so the body produces lactate, which acts as an energy source during exercise. But now Korean researchers have discovered that a protein called NDRG3, which sends a signal to accelerate the growth of cancer cells, is also boosted by lactate. NDRG3 is present in all cells, and it promotes cell growth and the creation of blood vessels. A body with plenty of oxygen can break the protein down. Without enough oxygen, however, the protein combines with the lactate buildup, speeding up cancer cell growth. The team's experiments with mice showed that liver cancer cells in animals with NDRG3 grew at more than twice the rate as those in which the protein was suppressed.
We've come to a deeper understanding of normal human bodily activity by studying the molecular basis for lactate-induced signaling. We can use the finding to develop therapies for disorders related to oxygen deficiency.
Previous studies have shown the influence of lactate on tumor growth, but they weren't able to explain how it happens and what role lactate plays in the process. Meanwhile, the team says cancer patients can't forgo exercise completely, but should design their workouts in consultation with a physician. The discovery was published in the U.S. journal Cell in April. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
And finally, before we go, taking a brief look at the weather. And rain is in store for most of the central region tonight. So if you're heading out, have an umbrella handy. It is going to be a mild night, however, with the low only dipping to 16 degrees Celsius here in Seoul. And Sunday will start out under cloudy skies and we'll see a high of 22 degrees in the capital. Now let's take a closer look at the weather around the world. And that is all we have for now. Do enjoy the rest of your Saturday wherever you're watching us and stay tuned to Arirang TV. We'll be back with our next newscast at 10 p.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.